What up? What up? Salvador Brigman here. Welcome back to the show. Hope you're having a great week. If you've been listening to this episodes before, first of all, thank you so much. Really value your time and I hope that you've been taking a lot away from these different styles of episodes. And like I always say, I try to bring on a diverse array of guests. So for example, today we're talking about a campaign which has been able to raise more than $120,000 for an art book. And kind of getting into what worked well for their category, as well as some of the things that they would pass on if you're trying to do anything when it comes to IP, or if you're trying to have a bigger raise on Kickstarter and it's kind of your first time doing it. They talked about a lot of the successful ways they're able to actually have a mega six-figure campaign, even though this was their first project actually on Kickstarter. I mean, they had more than 1,300 backers. So like I said, I try to bring on a diverse array of guests so we can kind of learn about product categories. We can also learn about, physical products, artists. We can learn about board games, equity crowdfunding, all that kind of stuff. And really, this is just so that you begin to connect the dots in the same way that I have in my career. I got started in this industry in 2012 and I started the podcast in 2015. For many years, I was a blogger on crowdcrux.com, which is the blog that I started. We're thankful to have some help there now as well. Also do a YouTube channel by the same name under my name, Salvador Brigman, which I have grown to over 30,000 subscribers and it's continuing to grow, which is super exciting. And really at the end of the day, I've always wanted to kind of take the things that I've noticed and just show you, because all the time I will see things that are working and it astounds me. It blows my mind. And I'm like, I can't believe this project got that much funding. What actually happened? What was happening behind the scenes? And that was kind of the genesis of this podcast, is to just share that with you. And so you're like a fly on the wall during these conversations that I have with elite crowdfunders. And you can hear what's working, you can hear what they would do differently. And also at the end of these episodes, literally every single person, almost every single person, says that the one thing that they would do differently is that they would have started sooner. So that's kind of also like a hidden motivation for me, is I think it's great to have education, have quality training, but I was always so bored in school. I went to George Washington University and I was always so bored in school. So the other kind of thing that I would love for you to take away is just to view this as a little bit of inspirational, like this is possible. And just hearing from these real world individuals, people that are actually existing on this planet, it shows you this is possible, if nothing else. So first thing is that if you're kind of figuring out this process still and you're listening to my episodes, you kind of want this just all in one place. You'd rather just kind of binge listen to this. I have a really great audiobook that's called the Kickstarter Launch Formula. It's also a physical book. You can check it out on Amazon, but people tend to like the audio version, I guess, because I read it with a little bit of passion and pizzazz, and I kind of make it a little bit more interesting than just, flipping through a paperback version. But I actually love paperbacks as well. But yeah, so go and check it out on Amazon, the Kickstarter Launch Formula. But in addition, I got the audiobook link that I'll share with you right now. And you can go and check that out at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Again, that link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. And you can actually hear me read that book to you in my passionate kind of, kind of way that I like to do things. So that being said, let's dive into today's episode and discover not only what worked to get this campaign 6 figures, but also some of the insights that they had for a first-time creator to stand out above the pack. And it's coming up right after this. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured, I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist. fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. And today we have a mega success on the show, over 120K that has been raised on Kickstarter, more than 1,300 backers. And this is for Hannibal, the art book. This is a printed in blood licensed art book collection. We have the creator and publisher here today, Stephen, who will tell us a little bit about this project. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely, man. Maybe we can kind of get started. You can just tell listeners a bit about what you were trying to accomplish with this project and what it is.
We've been around for a few years, and this is our 6th art book project that we've produced. Our very first one was in 2017. It was based around John Carpenter's movie The Thing. That was a self published book. And then we did some art book projects with both Titan and Insight Books because they had some licenses that we were really interested in working on. So for Insight, we did a Ghostbusters art book that came out earlier this year.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
We also did a book with Netflix for Stranger Things, same kind of format. And then we also, with Titan, we put out a Firefly book last year. Well, it's released in the UK. It's not out in the US until January 4th, just because there's been delays all over everything. But it's for the 35th anniversary of Aliens this year.
Exciting. And were these all Kickstarter campaigns, or these were independently published and then you recently went to Kickstarter?
No, this is our first try our at a Kickstarter campaign, and it's just because we have had these previous, we basically were a packager for these other companies because they held the licenses. And Hannibal, we hold the license ourselves, so this is actually we're publishing the book ourselves.
Got it. Understood. So, in terms of why you wanted to first of all come to the platform, so first of all, I guess is that you wanted to bring your own IP. Is that kind of how it is?
I mean, in a way, no, because I mean, this is a licensed product for Hannibal, so it's not really ours anyway. I mean, the art book model that we've been using is kind of ours. We've kind of made it ours, even though we didn't invent it. Clearly, there were other projects that were done prior to us starting off that were a similar mode, and we just kind of looked at that and said, I think we can do better, and I think we have. And with Kickstarter, it just for me, it's always been kind of a no brainer. I'm a big fan of the platform. I've backed hundreds of projects on it over the years, and it's just one of those things that it just had to kind of everything had to kind of align. The licensor had to be okay with us using Kickstarter to do the project. It had to obviously be worthwhile to us to do the project that way. And we just felt that it was a kind of a perfect fit, a kind of a perfect first project for us.
Got it. Got it. When it came to the project, how long were you working on this before you really unveiled this to the crowd there?
We started getting artwork at the beginning of this year. We put out the call to artists and we had an art deadline. I want to say, I believe it was some in July. July or August was the art deadline for turning in art initially.
Mhm.
And then we were able to get everything in place. And then in the fall, we were able to get everything kind of set up and running. And then we just said, all right, we finally got everything set. Let's go. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure and utilize one of the parts of Kickstarter that we wanted to really use this time. I always watch Kickstarter. I'm always looking at it. I think it's one of the best marketing tools kind of out there, but I think you have to look at it that way.
Mm.
It's not just a crowdfunding. It's not a store. It's not somewhere you go and you buy stuff from. Obviously, I think a lot of people who use Kickstarter a lot will agree with me there. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people go into it that way. They think it's something that they're basically going in and they're pre-ordering a project that's already set and ready to go. And that's not how the idea was built. That's
Mm.
not the whole concept behind Kickstarter. I think that a lot of people don't realize that Kickstarter is a great thing to use alongside whatever else you're planning marketing wise for your product and whatever other plans you have. Kickstarter is a great way to literally get it out into the zeitgeist and into the world and initially into the eyes and hands of people.
There are so many different publishing companies online nowadays. What are some of the unique values that you guys have that you really bring to the platform, you feel?
We have a database of over 1,500 artists when we launch a new product that we can go out to with a single email shot. And we basically will go out and we'll develop, and people who have seen and held our previous publications in their hands kind of understand what we're doing and also seeing the quality of the product that the kind of the final product that they get. So if this is something that's kind of in your wheelhouse or you're a fan, I think that people will understand automatically what we're doing. And I mean, we understand it's a slow build,
Mhm.
because it's just everyone has that IP or that property that they love, but not everybody loves every property, and we understand that.
Mhm.
We had 400 artists involved with the Thing art book, and we've done other art books where we've only gotten a couple hundred pieces of art in. It just really depends on the property and kind of the saturation level, and we get new artists added to our project email list every single project we do because more people hear about them from their friends or online or whatever, and they're like, well, how can I get involved? And it's like, well, you just did.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. And for you, I guess in this process, you're managing so much. It sounds like all of these artists and coordinating all the pieces. Is that kind of your role? Are you the business side? Are you the creative side? What is sort of your role in the process?
I really handle everything day to day on the books themselves. I do all of the artist contact, all of the coordination, all of the operations. I have a business partner in the project, and he is the business side of things for me. I'm the guy that sits around and thinks up crazy stuff to do, and I go to him and he's the one who says, "No, that doesn't make monetary sense. Let's not do that." So he's the adult, he's my ball and chain, he's my rock, my guy that like keeps me from going off on crazy tangents. Listen,
Blast
he's
off,
a
yeah.
fan just like I am. He has plenty of great crazy ideas himself, but he just wants to make sure that they are going to make sense first. That's the key thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely, definitely. One of the things when I first came to your page, I think surprised a lot of people is that you don't have a video. And on Kickstarter, we talk so much about videos, the importance of that, but you were able to knock it out of the park with this project without a video. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's wrong advice nowadays that you do need a video in this category?
No, I think a video is very helpful. I think people are very video oriented. I this just simply ran into a situation where we were basically ready to launch, ready to go, and in for me to be able to source a video to get put together, even something short and dirty, just wasn't going to take place, and we needed to really get this project rolling. So we chose to go without a video. And I'm not going to say we got lucky, but I will say that I think that in this particular case, I'm not so sure a video would have helped us any more than not having a video. But that's simply because we're dealing in this case with a licensed product. It's a fan base that already exists. And this project is really more about marketing and getting it out in front of the eyes of the people who love the project and love the TV series and love the IP.
And one of the things I noticed as well is you guys got funded so quickly, right? You got funded in 18 minutes, which is
Yes.
insane, right?
Yeah.
How did you really tap into that fan base to be able to have that kind of explosive launch?
The fan base for Hannibal is rabid, and there hasn't been a lot of new Hannibal product for a couple years. I was really able to take advantage of that pre-launch page that you can do on Kickstarter for as long as you want, essentially, to kind of promote the book. We put the launch page up, the pre-launch page up a full week before the launch of the book, and then I just spent a week tweeting, posting to Facebook groups, posting to Reddit, just posting wherever I could about the upcoming project and like teasing little pieces of artwork here and there. And by the time we were able to launch the page, we had more than 500 followers on the page.
Wow.
So, I mean, when literally the minute we launched the page, I think a minute after we launched it, we were up almost $1,000. It was instantaneous. There were people who were just sitting home, and as soon as they got the email that the project was live, they jumped on.
Mm.
So, I would recommend to anybody planning into their scheduling to use that launch page to your advantage. Like any word that you can get out ahead of time, those are the people you want to be able to get on immediately.
And when you do that, you're then in that upcoming projects list, right? Where people can go and get notified when you go live.
Exactly.
Got it. Yeah, that's super. I mean, that's really exciting. And I think you also teasing the artwork there, it kind of stokes the curiosity, as you said, of those rabid fan bases. So it's almost as though the fan base matters more in their eagerness for the products. That seems to be the number one thing here.
In this particular project, absolutely. In a project that would be based on fully original material, that's just hard. I mean, that just takes a lot of work. I mean, I'm not taking for granted any of the success that we've had. One of the things we got straight away was when soon as we got funded so quickly, we got super lucky in a writer over at IndieWire.com who was a huge Hannibal fan, did a write up about how fast the thing was funded. And when she posted that on IndieWire, it got picked up by Yahoo, it got picked up by IMDb. So there was a lot of extra free promotion that was just thrown out there that first day that we had nothing to do with. And we just got lucky because the writer was a big Hannibal fan. You
Mm,
know, our first write up was on Nerdist, and then it was followed up by an afternoon story on IndieWire. But
really
the
fast.
IndieWire,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's just, it spread that first day, it kind of spread not like wildfire, but it spread pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And how long were you doing that? Pre-launch, teasing out content, tweeting, doing Reddit, etc. How long were you doing that before you really turned the switch on?
Yeah, 1 full week. Yeah, we put the pre-launch page up on a Monday, and we launched it the following Monday at noon.
Yeah, dude, what's so interesting about this is, we talk on the show a lot about, preparation and like needing a video and doing a pre-launch for at least a month. What I love about this is that, so many of the things you're talking about run counter to those examples, but it works, which is the most important thing. And that's just so fascinating to me that that kind of in 1 week, you can have a whole base of people excited for this thing to come out, to launch it. And all of a sudden you got a massive project in your hands, right?
Yeah, and again, I take that back and really give all credit to the fan base. I mean, they have what's really nice about this particular fan base is that they have, they use the hashtag Fanable or Fanables everywhere. On any social media platform you can think of, you drop that hashtag in there, and there are thousands of people following that hashtag. And so and they have their own sort of like community, all around also. So it's like once we got some of like the really more well-known like fan artists who were involved in that community involved, and they would retweet or they would make posts about it. These were all like direct arteries right out to the people that we wanted to try and get to.
Mm,
Like if I put up a poster on the side of a wall, 1,000 people are going to walk by it a day. Maybe 5 or 10 are going to be Hannibal fans. But
mhm.
this is somebody posting to their 800 followers who are all massive Hannibal fans. And that's the kind of penetration you want to get. It's just that's really the hard part about posting or creating any new project is just finding the best way to get to that base of people who are willing to
Who care? Yeah.
who you're really willing to jump aboard an unknown project or are vastly interested in something you're already doing.
And what did it mean to you to really see the fans come out in that way and support this creation? What did that mean to your guys and your team?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, we were blown away. We just had the page open. I mean, me and my partner both had the page open on our desktops, and we were just watching it tick and tick and tick, and because it updates constantly, and we were just blown away that first day. We were just like, "Holy crap, it's still going!" I mean, the first hour was insane. It was like watching you have a similar situation when if you go back to there was a lot of press around the Berserker Kickstarter, the one with Keanu Reeves attached to it with Boom Studios.
Mm,
And, you know, a lot of people, it made a lot of people, try to kind of poo-poo Kickstarter for allowing them to do this and all this kind of nonsense. And I was just like, they used it as a marketing tool. They did exactly what Kickstarter was there for. I held absolutely no ill will because with the way I looked at it was that Kickstarter ended at like what, $4.2 million or $4.3 million, something like that. And there were something like, and just an insane number of backers, you know,
mhm,
thousands and thousands of backers. But if you dig into the metrics on that, how much do you want to bet anyone who watches Kickstarter or uses Kickstarter with any regularity? How much do you want to bet that probably 35% of those backers created Kickstarter accounts in order to back that
mhm,
project,
mhm.
which means that's 35,000 new sets of eyes who might troll through Kickstarter now on a regular basis and might run across my project.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I actually wrote an article about this a while ago where Kickstarter came out with some data, and this was years ago, where whenever they have a really big project, they actually did some number crunching in terms of the number of new backers that it brings in. So that's
Okay.
exactly right, what you're saying there.
That's exactly what I thought. So I was just like, I think that's just better for everyone involved doing any sort of comics promotion because now you've just brought all these people who are at least somewhat interested in comics to this table to go and look now. That's a whole bunch of new eyes that, 3 weeks ago you would never have gotten in front of.
So one of the things you mentioned as well is that, Kickstarter not being a store. Is there anything you had to think about differently doing this kind of a launch versus the other products that you've released in the past off of Kickstarter? Is there any way you had to think about the creator or the backers differently?
Not so much the backers, but for us, because our license was just to create this book project, in order to run and have like some other things to add to it, like the shirts and the cards and stuff like that, we had to get a secondary approval through the licensor to create those items as well to include in the Kickstarter, none of which will be available afterwards because we don't have the rights just to keep creating that merchandise.
Mhm.
Our deal is simply for the book.
Yeah, it
So
almost
in a
creates a
way,
scarcity.
we had
Yeah, that's cool.
well, yeah, well, I mean, it's just Kickstarter exclusive material, all it was, and so that's another reason why I think it's going to work well because I mean, once this Kickstarter is over, we're going to put the book up for public pre-order on our website, and this cover and slipcase version will not be available. It'll be a different cover, and you will not be able to get this cover anymore.
What were some of the conversations that you and your business partner had when it came to like the numbers and planning behind that project? Because it sounds like you've done a lot of thought when it comes to that and thinking about, what goes into the project and what you're going to need to do there.
Yeah, there have been not only very long conversations, but there have been a lot of them going in because I mean, you go through and it's very easy to get your base numbers like, okay, what's it going to cost me to print X number of copies of this book and get them shipped to us. And, so that's an easy number to figure out. Then all the other stuff, the extra materials, you can do, quotes online for almost anything nowadays. So you can get a really good idea of kind of figuring out if you can kind of ballpark a number where you hope to hit, you can kind of get an idea of what everything all in is going to cost you. And the one thing that I would just add is, when you had asked about three things about there are three tips or whatever going into this conversation. I said one is just know your numbers. One of the things people don't take into consideration, and I think this is where a lot of people who do Kickstarters run into trouble, is because Kickstarter allows you to count your shipping money if you're adding shipping costs at the front side into the total overall money you get. If you've set your goal at say you need a hard $5,000 to make your project. So you set your goal at $6,000 just to give yourself some wiggle room.
Mhm.
But let's say you get funded at $6,200 and let's say 20% of that is shipping money. Well, that's shipping. That doesn't count towards what you have to do. And it certainly doesn't count against the almost 10% you're going to lose to running the Kickstarter. So it's just so important at the beginning to understand kind of how to set your goal. I mean, we set our goal low because we wanted to make sure it got funded. We were pretty sure we were going to hit it no matter what. We didn't expect it to go where it's gone, but we were pretty sure we were going to hit it no matter what.
Yeah, we've had some other creators on the show as well who mentioned collecting shipping after the campaign is finished. What are your thoughts on doing something like that?
I am not for or against either way. I think both have their benefits. Me as a backer, I like funding it up front because I know all the
You don't got to
costs.
worry about it. Yeah.
I always have this little thorn in my side whenever I got to check out through BackerKit and I have to go and get my credit card and enter, to pay the extra $8 for shipping or whatever it is, just because it's annoying. And that's just because it's an extra step that I have to do. I think it makes a lot of sense if you don't want to. I think it takes a lot of the extra math out of it. It makes that sort of the upfront configuring of what you want to do a little easier because then the money is the money and you don't have to try and configure out all that shipping stuff.
Yeah. In some ways, it might be better for the creator, but in other ways, it might be more mental work for the backer, right? To figure it out. And it might hold
Yeah,
them back.
yeah. I mean, it's an extra step for the backer, but I think that for the creator, it's a good way to approach it because I think it removes one of the pitfalls that can potentially really trip you up.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I had a kind of couple curious questions about you, because you kind of have a bit of an offbeat career here. I think a lot of people would be interested to just learn more about that. How long have you been doing the publishing business now and working?
We started Printed in Blood back in 2012, and it wasn't even called Printed in Blood then. Doing alt poster prints because that was the industry that I just absolutely fell in love with. So we were doing poster prints, me and my partner, and we were just creating prints. We were both working for a convention in Long Beach, California. So every year at that show, we would make some new prints. We'd talk to some artist friends of ours and get some new prints made based on anniversaries of movies from that year. So if you go to our website, you'll see a bunch of the print. We still have a bunch of the prints in the store that are available for, for available to people to buy that we used to do. We've kind of moved away from that because I think that the alt poster print business is just so competitive nowadays. And our model for while successful in and of itself, it wasn't something that was going to take us to the next level.
Mhm.
And I was just one of those things that we were just it kind of got us our mental foot in the door for us. And it wasn't until a couple years later that I had seen there was a publication that DC Comics put out when Mad Max Fury Road came out in 2015, where they took 60, I think 60 of the DC artists, and they had them create kind of a cool piece of art based on Fury Road. And I was super excited because I love Mad Max. And I got the book and I was so disappointed in the production. And I was just like,
Mm.
man, I can't believe that because they put it together in a nice hardcover presentation, but because it was only like 120 pages, you couldn't open the book flat enough to really appreciate the art without practically completely cracking the
Yeah,
spine.
yeah.
And I just felt like, I mean, Ben Templesmith is a really good friend of mine, and he had done a piece for the book, and I had seen the piece beforehand. So it took me literally 3 times flipping through the book before I could actually even find his piece without looking in the index, because one of the main focal points was a center image of that steering wheel with the skull in it,
That
and
sounds frustrating. Yeah.
it was completely lost in the gutter of the book because they took every image and they made it a spread.
Mhm.
So I was just like, man, I know we could do something cool like this and just do it better. And I honestly, that was the impetus for us to go into the Thing Book project.
And what year was that? When was that?
That was in 2000. I think the Mad Max book came out in 2015 or maybe early 2016. And then I had the idea for the Thing book in the spring of 2016. And we were able to get it out we launched it at Comic-Con in 2017 in San Diego.
At what point did you begin to really pursue this more like a full-time fashion where you're really getting more serious about Printed in Blood?
I had been doing this part time, or not part time, like free time, while I had a full time job initially in property management in Manhattan, and then I went to work for Mezco Toys for a little while. And I was doing it all the time I was working there. And when I left the job at Mezco Toys, it was probably about 9 months, 10 months before the pandemic hit. I had been kind of working from home already because I had just kind of been focused on trying to really get Printed in Blood off the ground, and we were trying to get projects done and really get kind of build up money where we could start going after licenses ourselves. That was the key thing, because if I go through, like, for example, if I'm talking to Titan or Insight or whoever, and they come to me and say, hey, we want you to make us a book, they're going to pay us a flat dollar amount and we're going to do the project. We're going to deliver it. And then 9 times out of 10, because of the royalty structure and sales numbers, we're probably not going to get anything more than that.
Mhm, mhm.
So there's a cap there. Whereas if we own the license, sure, we have to pay a royalty out to the licensor, but all the other money that comes in from every sale is profit for us. So there's a big difference between publishing things yourselves and being tied in with partnered with another publisher to do something like that.
It sounds like it's kinda like shackles almost a little bit.
It's not so much that it's shackles, it's more of, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, you know, there are certain licenses that are just going to be really difficult to get your foot in the door on. Like, I don't hold any imagination that we'll ever get to be in a position to do like a Star Wars art book in the model that we do it, because Disney does their own publishing. I don't foresee us getting our foot in the door with anything Disney owns. That being said, they still license out Fox materials, clearly, because we did an Aliens book. We've done a Firefly book. So I think potentiality relies there. But there are things that we would love to do, like Harry Potter. Okay, like that would be an amazing one for us to
That would be
do, to
super
tackle.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
And I think a lot of people would get on board with it. But that's a license that's held by another publisher. So it'd be difficult for us to go in on a one-off deal to try and deal with Warner Brothers, because another problem is a lot of these film studios, they want to make deals that are going to net them hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So coming to them saying, "Hey, we'd really like to do this book. How many copies do you think you're going to sell?" "Well, we would hope to sell 8 or 10,000 copies." "What else you got?" It's like they want to see either a program or they want to see something that's going to net them a lot of money. They don't want to make these little deals.
Yeah, yeah,
Now,
yeah.
that being said, not every studio is like that, and we have found several of the smaller studios willing to make deals because they have people who understand consumer products, have been there a long time, and they like the idea of doing these kind of boutique projects. So it's just a matter of kind of making the right connections and finding those people who are, I don't want to say more open minded, but are definitely less corporate powered. I guess is kind of
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I just have like one or two more questions for you here. So one of them I
sure.
had was, there are so many examples I think of creators who are not successful, right? And particularly people who are trying to start up new businesses. But you've been doing this now for I think it's 8 years or a little bit more than that, and you have this upward surge now, and you're doing super well. What do you think really made the difference for you and your team? Was it just persistence? Was it having the right connections? Was it being able to kind of figure out the business model? What do you feel like really made the difference for you guys?
It's having a spouse who has a good job that allows us to be able to do the stuff that we absolutely love that makes little to no money for a long period of time. I say that jokingly, but in a way, I mean, I'm very lucky in that, my longtime partner has a job that allows me to do this, and so at any speed that I can get this up to a point where it can now start to bring in some real money, then I can start to feel like I'm finally able to kind of give something back, for all the years that, she's been, I don't want to say carrying me, but allowing me to do something that I love in order to, get it and make it as successful as we can.
Makes sense. The other question I had for you is, what do you believe? I mean, you've seen a bunch of different projects. You've obviously studied a bunch. What do you feel like, if you had to sum it up, makes the difference between a really good Kickstarter campaign and one that's just kind of mediocre and you're not really that interested?
That's really tough. If you look at like art books and like comics, because that's really my two main kind of areas where I back projects, it really just comes down to, this is a really kind of a crap answer, and I'm sorry, I apologize for it, but it really just comes down to people's tastes. If you don't have the ability like the Hannibal Kickstarter to tap into an existing fan base, or you're not producing it, if you're producing an all new thing that you created and you're pushing it out there, and your name isn't Jim Lee, or your name isn't Tom King, you don't have the ability to bank on a name. It's very difficult. It's really hard. It takes a lot of work, and again, I've seen guys with names jump into Kickstarter, and they'll put a thing in there because they want to get paid what their time is worth. And I've seen them fail miserably at Kickstarters because of that, because they'll like, I want to do this 128-page original graphic novel. I wrote it. I'm going to draw it. We need to make $80,000. And I was just like, wow, that may be a tough sell. And, at the end of the day, they made, I think, 25 or 30,000, and it failed. But then I've also seen guys I know who have a big name and have done multiple Kickstarters, like they do 3 or 4 a year, and they still kind of stay in this sort of like mid range. They seem to grow each time, because what's really nice, and another thing I don't think people utilize enough with Kickstarter, is if you're doing multiple Kickstarters in the core over a period of time, and you find a base of people who have previously backed your projects and like them, keep going back to that mailing list, that update list, that list that you can send out and hit all of them through that project and say, "Hey, I have a new project. Come check it out." And I think, that's a base every single time you do a project. That's a new base of
Yeah,
people.
100%. I mean, we've had people on the show who've done 20 projects, right? So you definitely, what you're saying, I think there's a lot of credibility to it. I think you guys are also kind of building that base here, right? With this.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because we have right now two more projects that are going to be. We have one that's going to be ready to launch, we hope, in January. And it's really just going to depend on Kickstarter themselves on how we approach it. But then we have another one which another licensed project that's going to be out in the first quarter of next year that's ready for Kickstarter. That is going to, we think is going to be a massive, because it has an absolutely massive worldwide following on it. So we think it's going to be another, we hope, another really huge Kickstarter project.
Exciting. Well, first of all, where can people go to learn more about the Hannibal art book?
The Kickstarter tagline, if you just go to Hannibal, that's another thing I will say real quick is, it doesn't cost much, and I think it's worth its weight in gold. If you wanna not have to type in that Kickstarter a link every time, you can always go obviously with a bit shortening or a bit.ly or a tiny URL, one of those kind of companies. But in my case, I just went and bought HannibalArtBook.com, and it cost me $19 for 2 years, and I just immediately pointed it right at the Kickstarter page. And it just makes it super easy for you to drop your information, and it's super easy to remember if it's just a couple of words. That's the title of your project or whatever. The other thing about it is, as soon as the Kickstarter is over and it goes up for sale on the mass release edition comes up for sale, I'm just going to point it at our web store. So it's just it's a really simple little thing. It doesn't cost a lot up front, but it makes getting people to to the Kickstarter a lot easier.
That's the name of the game.
So Hannibal Art Book, all one word, is how you get there.
Awesome. So my final question for you is, if you could speak directly to the audience, and we can kind of end on this note. We can either end with a final tip, a word of encouragement, something that you wish you knew, something you're thinking about applying to your next project, or just a little bit of motivation for that creator that's still working on their first project and really trying to get it.
Working with artists as long as I have, I will say that just go out there and do it. It's self-publishing these days is so much easier than it used to be. And there are so many resources for the self-publisher out there online that if you just take a little time and look around, do a little research, I find that almost anyone can figure out, especially if you're an artist, I think anyone can actually figure out how to do all of the layout, all of the setup, all of the print readiness that you need to do, and just do it yourself. Just, I hate to fall back on the old Nike tagline, but just do it. Don't wait around for anything, or don't say, oh, you're waiting for the right time or anything. Just go ahead and put it out there. I mean, you'll find out one way or another. If it fails, it fails. You go back, you retool, you adjust your numbers, and you go back and try it again.
Love it.
That's a nice thing about Kickstarters is they're not going to keep you for, it's not a one and done thing. It's like, oh, you failed, you can't come back. You can keep putting the same thing up over and over again until it does work.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, man, for coming on the show and sharing all these great tips, and good luck with your upcoming projects on Kickstarter.
You're very welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh man, was that not a cool interview? Like, geez, I feel like for me, I feel so privileged to be able to understand and to be able to listen to and sort of discover what goes behind these major mega campaigns. And I think that honestly, we are so lucky to have just super sincere, transparent guests on this show. And actually, a lot of these guests were also listeners of this podcast, which is insane, which is crazy. And I call that kind of like karma, where people who are students of this podcast or students of my work then go and be successful on Kickstarter and kind of come back and share their story. And I would love for you to do that sometime. Like, that would be an amazing trajectory, I think, if you also taking action towards your goals, were successful with crowdfunding, and you came back and shared that story with us. At the end of the day, I think one of the coolest ways just to say that this is working, and that the service that I provide here, which I think is kind of like almost like a public service of just drawing your attention, awareness to what's working, and trying to put together high quality education, that's something that is useful for the community. And it means so much to me when you do things like rate and review this podcast, when you upvote it on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, subscribing to it, telling other people about it, all those kinds of things just make a world of difference. And it also makes it so much more exciting to produce these episodes for you. And recently, I've actually been getting a lot of inquiries, a lot of people reaching out to me on Instagram. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but if you want to, you can check me out on Instagram. I do put out some content there when it comes to crowdfunding, and you can check that out. My name, Salvador Brigman. I'm also considering getting into TikTok. We're not super big there yet, but I do put out some stuff on Instagram, so you can check that out there. In addition, if you want to book a one-on-one coaching call with me, you can go to the link I'm about to mention, and we can talk about your project, kind of what goes into it. And this is really intensive. This is not for the faint of heart. A lot of the times I will draw attention to things that you need to improve, things that you need to actually do if you want to be successful, some of the missing components of what's in your plan. Or I actually have a lot of students as well who will book calls and they're just kind of wondering whether or not this is something that's right for them. So there are a lot of different types of students. And one of my roles as a coach, as a business coach, is to really tailor that experience to the individual, as well as to draw from my vast library of knowledge, right, when it comes to crowdfunding, and to tease out those campaigns, those types of products that are most likely going to relate to that individual, and to show them examples of success. Or if I don't think that this is something that's good for crowdfunding, I will tell them flat out, in my 8+ years being in this industry is probably not a good thing to go down this route. So if you're interested in kind of, pulling back the curtain there and understanding that for your specific product, your category, what you're trying to achieve, and you really want an expert to look at this for you in the same way that you might hire a lawyer to file paperwork for you, or you might hire a doctor if you need a good opinion on something, or you hire a CPA if you want to make sure that your books are right when it comes to the IRS. This is just another way in order to make sure that when you do launch, you're putting so much effort into this launch, you're putting so much financial resources into this launch, and you're thinking about it, and your whole life is about this for a good 3 months, might as well do it right and really invest in that experience. So if you're interested, you can check out this link. This link is crowdcrux.com/coaching. Again, that link is crowdcrux.com/coaching. Again, crowdcrux.com/coaching. Just fill out a little bit of information there so I know exactly what you're trying to achieve and I understand your project to the best of my ability. And then we can get that call scheduled ASAP. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Hope you have a great week. Taking action towards your goals as always, and I will see you next time.